Okay, this is the Math Models Unit 1 lesson 4 video. Um, this is just kind of a brief kind of overview of how data can be represented um, and just some basics about that kind of stuff. And when I say that, I mean if I have some information in a table like this one, this table has people's names and their shoe size, height, TV they watch, their test score, and their favorite ice cream. Like, what are some ways that I might be able to present this information that isn't like this? I mean, this is not really easy to read or understand and see any trends or really take anything away from a table like this. However, if I were to graph, for instance, their shoe sizes and their height together on a graph like you see here, this would be what we call a scatter plot, I can see that there's a trend. The taller someone is, the bigger their shoe size tends to be. It's not, every case is not the same, but in the trend is that it is increasing. And so this idea of a scatter plot and this type of interpretation is kind of the first big idea in this lesson. So I'm going to jump over to my notes, show you a little picture here. Get my face out of the way here. Well, I'll just leave it there until I need to move it. There are three ways that data can be represented, or no, sorry, three ways that it can be related. One is that the correlation between the two is positive, meaning that as one increases, the other increases as well. This doesn't mean they follow a straight line, but it means that there is a sort of general trend. There can be negative correlation when that trend instead is going down as you move across the graph. And then lastly, you might have what you call no correlation, which is really just doesn't really seem to be any connection between those two pieces of data. So I'll leave this on the notes. That'll be helpful for some of the questions in the unit. So that's what correlation is, and that's what you see here as well. Test scores, hours of TV. You can see here there's sort of a trend that the more hours of TV you watch a week, the lower your test score becomes. I'm not sure if you think that's true or not, but that's what that shows. And then, of course, maybe we look at someone's height and the hours of TV they watch and see, there's really not a relationship here, which should be kind of obvious to us. How tall you are has nothing to do with how much TV you watch. So in general, when we do this, we have a term for the thing on the horizontal axis and on the vertical axis. So this axis down here, in this case height, is what we call the independent variable, and the thing along the y-axis, the vertical axis, is what we call the dependent variable. And so we're kind of assuming, when we graph it this way, that there is some causation or some way that this x-axis, this height, in this case, the independent variable, is influencing the y-axis or the dependent variable. And so independent variable is what you're the thing that you're starting with, and the dependent variable is what's being affected by that. So just kind of be aware of that. So then they get us into some different types of graphs besides scatter plots. And so I'm just going to briefly touch on each one of those. So we have bar graphs. Bar graphs are a way to make comparisons between different values. Just a very clear way to show which one is more than the other. Then we have circle graphs, which would be a way of showing how much of a total group falls into certain categories. In this case, it looks like ice cream flavors. And then lastly, we have line graphs. And line graphs are useful when you're trying to show something over time, how it changes over time. In this case, we have the months and we have the temperature. And again, the months here would be the independent variable and the temperature would be the dependent variable. So most of these questions are asking some of those basic ideas. In particular, they ask about that exact graph. What's the dependent and independent variable of figure 4.6? Remember, the x-axis is the independent and the y-axis is the dependent. I'll let you do that one. Again, they're asking questions 4.1. Let's go look at that one. That was the very first one. They ask, is there a relationship? Does there appear to be an influence? So you just answer as to what you think. Do you think that there is a indication that an increase in shoe size causes an increase in height? Yes or no? Then they say for us to look at different examples and what's best suited for a line graph. Again, I'll review this real quick. Line graphs are most useful when you're looking at something that's happening over time. Circle graphs are best when you're looking at a whole group and you want to see how many fall into each category. And bar graphs are useful when you're looking at different groups and just want to make a straight comparison as to how many are in each group. So I'll let you answer number 3. The next few questions are asking you to look at a table and answer some questions. I just don't sweat this, just answer to the best of your ability. Read these carefully and say, do you think that one of these is more understandable? What's the best way to show this information? Is it with the months like this and the cities on the side, or the cities at the top with the months down the side? What do you think is more useful and why? Same thing here. Which graph makes more sense to you? This is totally your opinion. And then here, maybe there's a good reason why one of these is better than the other, based on the things we talked about in this lesson. Same with number 7. Then in number 8, they give us a table similar to the one in the lesson, and then they have us choose the bars that would fit for each one. This is a little bit strange, but what I really want you to focus on is you see here the activity is the key here. What's the favorite vacation activity? You need to go ahead and count these up, and I would write that down somewhere else so that when you go to pick the bars, you can pick the one that fits the number of that activity. So reading, for instance, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people like reading. Is that bar going to be the biggest one or the middle one or the smallest one compared to the other activities? And so just pick the bar that matches the one that has the most down to the least. And then lastly, number 9, what type of correlation? I'll just remind you on the notes, I've given you an example of each type of correlation. And that's it for lesson 4.